They say money talks, but I guess mine had a southern drawl and smelled a little too much like cow shit to be heard. Before I tell you this funny and terrible story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like our video. Help us reach as many people as possible. Thank you. Let me start from the top. My name's Earl McKinney. I'm 54, live alone on a 400-acre cattle farm in Nebraska, and if I'm being honest, the only thing I love more than my cows is the silence they give me after a long day of hauling feed and fixing fences. I don't dress fancy. Wranglers, flannel, boots worn from 20 years of trudging through mud and manure. And yes, I drive a rusty old pickup that looks like it got rear-ended by the Great Depression. But it's mine, all of it. The farm, the land, the cows, even the goddamn rust. Anyway, this story starts on a Tuesday because all humiliations tend to happen on Tuesdays. I'd just sold a few heifers at auction and closed a deal on a parcel of land next to mine. All said and done, I had about $180,000 sitting in my bank account, burning a hole in my overalls. I figured it was finally time to trade in my old Chevy. It had survived 2 tornadoes, a divorce, and a flash flood that took out the south pasture. But it coughed harder than I did, and had more warning lights on the dash than a Christmas tree in Times Square. So I drove into Lincoln to check out this high-end dealership I'd seen on TV. They had all the fancy trucks, the kind with seats that massage your ass and cup holders that chill your soda. You know, the kind of nonsense no real farmer needs. But damn it, I'd earned a little nonsense. The second I pulled into the lot, I could feel it, the invisible wall. Like I'd stepped into a country club in a manure-stained jacket. The showroom windows were so clean, I could see my reflection. In them, and man, I looked like a punchline. My boots were dusty, my shirt had a grease stain the size of Texas, and I hadn't shaved since Thanksgiving. I opened the glass door, and the smell of lemon polish and condescension hit me like a brick. Inside were about 6 salesmen. Not a single one looked older than 30. All of them had hair so perfect you'd think they were born in a bottle of pomade, and teeth so white it made me wonder if they brushed with bleach. I stood there for a full minute. Not one of them came over, so I walked up to the desk. A skinny kid in a suit that probably cost more than my mortgage looked up from his phone like I'd just tracked cow dung across his soul. "Can I help you?" he asked, lips curled like he'd just smelled me. "Looking to buy a truck," I said. "Something top of the line, got cash." His eyes scanned me like I was a stray dog begging outside a bakery. "We don't take trade-ins older than 10. "Years," he said. I blinked. "Didn't say I was trade-in. I said I was buy-in. Got the money right now." He didn't answer. Just turned to another salesman, some guy with a chin you could cut glass on, and they laughed. Not subtly. Not kindly. I heard it. I felt it. Then the guy looks at me and says, "Look, sir, maybe you should try one of the used lots down the road. Or, I don't know, the tractor store. I think they've got stuff in your budget." And then he added, God help him, he added, "Or maybe try asking for money somewhere else. This is a premium dealership." I swear to God I stood there frozen. I hadn't felt that kind of humiliation since I walked in on my wife with the local pharmacist. And even that guy had the decency to look guilty. But these boys, they laughed, right to my face. One of them even said, "Is this for a movie? Are we being pranked?" I could have said something. Could have pulled out my bank statement and slapped it on the counter like a poker hand, but I didn't. I just turned and walked out, because sometimes when life punches you in the gut, you don't swing back. Not right away. You take the hit. You taste the blood, and you plan. I drove home in my rusty truck, windows down, wind biting, the heater broken since the Bush administration. And I thought real hard. This wasn't just about a truck. It wasn't even about respect. It was about how easy it is for people to decide who matters and who doesn't just by the dirt on your boots. They thought I was a nobody. But the thing about nobodies, we got time and spite and a whole lot of creativity when we're pushed too far. Let's just say I spent the next few weeks not just feeding cows, but feeding a plan. Because if they thought I was poor, They were about to learn what rich vengeance smells like, and yes, it smells exactly like cow shit. A week passed, a whole week where I did what I do best. Nothing. Well, not nothing. I was busy plotting. I didn't talk to anybody about it. Not my cousins, not the guys down at the feed store, and sure as hell not the folks at the church who love to gossip. This wasn't something you throw out there like an innocent little seed, expecting it to grow into a fruitful conversation. No, this was a seed I was going to plant in their shiny dealership garden and let it rot. I started by doing what they told me to do. I went to another lot, but I didn't go to any random lot. No, I went straight to the most exclusive, high-end car dealer in the area. The kind of place where the salesmen have more teeth than common sense. The place where even the floor tiles look too rich for my taste. I walked in, this time in a nice new shirt, still wrinkled but new. My boots were polished just enough to look acceptable to the rich folk, and I'd borrowed a hat from one of my cousins to give me that man of power look. I had money to spend, so I figured I'd give them a shot at humiliating me again. As I walked in, the smell was different. There was no polish here, just leather, expensive cologne, and the scent of desperation. I could tell right away they were desperate to make a sale. They saw me, took one glance at my boots, my hands rough with work, and didn't hesitate. They came over, smiling wide, the kind of smile that told me they thought I was either stupid or in the wrong place. A tall guy with a face that could only be described as non-threatening approached me. He extended his hand like I was going to fall for the charade. "Good morning, sir. Can I help you with something today?" His voice was smooth, probably rehearsed. "I'm here to buy a truck," I said, leaning against the counter like I owned the place. "Got cash? Oh, wonderful. Let me show you some of our premium models," he said, already starting his fast-paced pitch. "We've got the finest trucks in the market, luxurious interiors, cutting-edge technology." I cut him off. Yeah, I just want a damn truck, the kind that doesn't look like a city boy's toy, something that works." The salesman blinked. I could almost see the gears turning in his head as he tried to figure out if I was a serious buyer or some guy just wasting his time. But this wasn't about a truck. This was about something deeper. This was about sending a message. I let him walk me around the lot for a bit. I let him show me the usual overpriced, overpolished junk. Trucks that probably had more features than my entire farm, but none of them would get through the mud like my old Chevy did. None of them had a tailgate that could take the weight of a full load of feed without cracking. I told him I'd think about it and walked out, but not before I made sure he saw the cash bulging in my back pocket. I left a little trail of breadcrumbs, just enough for them to know I had the money they thought I didn't. The next day, I called them. I set up an appointment, not to buy a truck, but to let them know just how wrong they were about me. I went back, this time with a little more pep in my step. I made sure they could see me as I parked my old truck, knowing they'd recognize it. A beautiful, rusted heap of mechanical nostalgia. I could see them peeking out of the windows, like vultures waiting for a carcass. But this time, I wasn't there to play their game. I was there to play my own. The same salesman who had treated me like a second-class citizen saw me walking in. His eyes widened slightly, and he straightened his tie, looking almost apologetic. But I didn't let him off the hook that easily. I told him I was there to test out a truck. "The one I was looking at last week," I said, making sure to put emphasis on the last week. "Oh, of course," he said, looking flustered. "Let me get the keys for you." But before he could walk away, I stopped him. "Oh, no, I don't need the keys just yet. I've got a few things to say to you first." The blood drained from his face. "See, I came here last week to buy a truck. Real simple. But when I walked in here, you made it very clear that my money wasn't good enough for you. You told me to go somewhere else. You told me to ask for money elsewhere. Well, I'm not some charity case, and I'm not your type, am I?" I could feel the bile rise in my throat, but I kept my voice steady. even a little too calm for his liking. I'm a goddamn farmer, and you don't even know the first thing about hard work. So you know what I did after you told me that? I leaned in, just enough for him to hear me over the hum of the dealership. I made sure you'd regret it. He swallowed hard. The others were starting to look in our direction. I could see the wheels turning in their heads. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was an idiot. They were wrong. I didn't come here to waste your time, I continued. I came here to teach you something. Something that doesn't come with a shiny paycheck or a degree from some fancy college. I came here to show you what happens when you treat people like shit just because they don't look like you. And then I did it. I made sure to do it slowly, so he could see my every move. I pulled out my phone, a few swipes, a few taps, and there it was. The email from my bank, the loan I'd just approved for a new building for my farm. It's not a truck I'm buying today, I said with a smile, watching his face fall. But it's enough to make sure you'll never forget my name. And trust me, when I'm done, you'll wish you'd given me a goddamn test drive. I turned and walked out. He tried to stop me, but it was too late. I didn't have to say another word. I'd already won. I could feel their eyes on me as I walked out of the dealership. That same judgmental, pitying look. The kind of look you give a dog that's been kicked around too much, and all you can do is watch as it walks away, tail between its legs. Only this time, I wasn't the dog. No, no. This time I was the one who was going to bite. Hard. That night I sat at my kitchen table, pouring myself a glass of whiskey and just thinking. It had been years since I'd let myself be humiliated like that. Ever since my wife left me, took half of everything we had, and still somehow managed to not take the cows, I'd gotten used to being the kind of person people don't pay attention to, the kind who gets stepped on. But not anymore. Not after the dealership. No, now I was playing on a different level. The first step was simple. I made sure my loan went through without a hitch. The building for the farm was already underway. A brand new storage facility, bigger, better, more room for everything. I'd always wanted to do this, but now it had a purpose. It wasn't just a building, it was a statement. The next step. The dealership needed to be reminded of who they were dealing with, and I had just the plan. I went to the car dealership again the next week, this time with a quiet, simmering satisfaction deep in my chest. I dressed well, but I didn't overdress. My boots were clean, and my shirt was pressed, but nothing too fancy. Just a man in his prime, on his way to make a deal. I knew this time they'd expect me. They'd be ready, trying their hardest to put on that false smile. But I was ready for them. I walked in, and they all froze. The same salesman who'd told me to ask for money elsewhere was sitting at his desk, staring at me like I was a ghost. The look on his face was priceless. He didn't come to me right away. Instead, he slowly got up and walked toward me. I could tell he wasn't sure whether to be nervous or apologetic, so he did a little of both. "Mr. McKinney, what can we do for you today?" he asked, but his voice wavered just slightly, a crack in the polished facade. "Oh, I'm here to talk business," I said, smiling. I wanted to let him sweat. I wanted him to know I wasn't here for another test drive. I wasn't here for anything they could offer me. "I've been thinking about our last conversation." His eyebrows knit together, but he didn't speak. He probably wanted to remind me that he wasn't responsible for what happened last time, but I didn't give him the chance. I walked past him toward the same row of trucks I'd looked at before, picking one that stood out. A silver model. Expensive, flashy, exactly what they thought I wanted. "I've decided I want to buy this truck," I said, stopping in front of it. "But not here, not from you." He blinked a few times, trying to process what I was saying. "Excuse me?" "I'll tell you what," I said, turning back to look at him. "You see, I came here last week, and you treated me like trash. But what you don't know is that I've got a new plan, one that's going to cost you a lot more than you think." His face went pale. "Let me tell you a little secret," I continued. "I already bought this truck, and a whole bunch of other trucks. I'm going to make sure your business is flooded with competitors. And while your fancy dealership sits there looking polished and perfect, my new storage facility's going to be up and running, big enough to handle all the livestock trade and farm supplies in this county." "Oh, and that loan I took out? It's just the start. I've got investors now. A whole lot of them. Not a one of them is looking for a fancy ride. They're looking for real hard work, just like me." I could see the realization hit him. He hadn't been dealing with some country bumpkin, no. He'd been dealing with someone who had a better plan, a better strategy, and most importantly, the patience to wait. "I'm also getting in touch with a few real estate developers," I added. "Maybe they'll want to build some fancy apartments around here, right in the middle of this fancy lot. Not sure how that'll work with your multi-million-dollar inventory, but hey, it'll make a nice, picturesque parking lot." The salesman, now visibly sweating, took a step back. "Mr. McKinney, please, let's not do anything rash. I'll have a manager come out here." "Oh, don't bother," I interrupted, waving a hand. "You know what? Keep your truck, keep your pretty showroom, but I'll be the one driving circles around your dealership in my farm-fresh trucks. I'll be the one bringing in the real money, the real customers, the ones you'll never see, because they're out working for a living, not sitting behind desks." I turned to leave, but I couldn't resist adding one last thing. "Oh, and don't worry. I'll be sure to stop by every few weeks, just to remind you of how wrong you were about me, how wrong you were to judge a man by his boots." I felt the weight of the words land on the room as I walked out the door. It didn't take long before the first signs of change started showing. Over the next few months, I saw the dealership's sales drop. They had a few new models to showcase, but it didn't matter. People knew about the new development happening in town. They knew about my farm, about the fresh supplies I was offering, at better prices than anything those high-end dealerships could provide. The real farmers, the real workers, they started to pay attention, and they started to show up. My new storage facility was up and running. The trucks I'd purchased were being used for something that mattered, something that worked, something real. I wasn't just another customer. I was a force. And that dealership, well, let's just say it didn't take long for the customers who had ignored me to start avoiding them too. Within a year, the once premium lot was up for sale. A sign out front said, "Under new management." I couldn't help but smile at that, because in the end, it wasn't about the truck. It was about showing them that sometimes the real power doesn't come from money. It comes from knowing who you are and what you can do when you stop taking shit from people, and the taste of sweet, sweet vengeance. It was better than any luxury truck could ever be.